Let's get one thing straight. If he left, moved on quickly, or is already with someone else, that doesn't mean the story is over. But what most people do in that moment, pleading, chasing, proving their worth, only pushes him further away. The truth? The path back into his mind and heart doesn't start with convincing him. It starts with you. When you shift your energy away from trying to be chosen and start choosing yourself, everything changes. This isn't about playing games or manipulating someone back into your life. It's about showing up in such a powerful, magnetic, elevated way that if there's even an ounce of emotional connection left, he won't just miss you, he'll question everything about why he ever let you go. So if you've ever found yourself asking, how do I make him regret losing me? Or, is it even possible to get him back when he's with someone else? This message is for you. Because yes, it is possible, but not by trying harder, by becoming undeniable. Let's talk about how there's a moment after a breakup, especially when the person you loved has moved on, that feels like emotional freefall. You look around at the life you shared, the memories, the little things only the two of you understood, and suddenly, he's not there. Worse, he might be holding someone else's hand now, smiling in someone else's arms. That realization can crush your self-esteem if you let it. And it's usually in that vulnerable state that most people make the biggest mistake, trying to fix the situation by running toward him. You may tell yourself, if I just remind him of what we had, if I just make him see how much I still care, maybe he'll come back. But here's the truth that's hard to swallow. Chasing someone who walked away only confirms to them that they had the power all along. And when someone knows they can have you whenever they want, they rarely choose to come back because there's no fear of losing you. The real shift begins when you stop moving toward him and start moving toward yourself. Detachment isn't about pretending you don't care. It's not coldness or indifference. It's about choosing your peace over pain, your dignity over desperation. It's recognizing that your worth isn't tied to someone else's ability to see it. And it's learning to sit with the discomfort of missing someone without letting that longing drive you to actions that undermine your value. When you stop chasing, you begin healing. When you stop reacting to his breadcrumbs, the occasional text, the half-hearted just checking in, and instead focus on your own life, something powerful happens. You stop needing closure from him because you start giving it to yourself. You stop waiting for someone to choose you because you realize you already have the power to choose yourself. In fact, the most magnetic thing you can do when he's with someone else isn't to prove that you're better than her. It's not to compete. It's to completely remove yourself from the race. When you're no longer in the business of comparison, you free yourself from the emotional grip of needing validation. And paradoxically, that's when he begins to feel the void. Men notice when you disappear. But more importantly, they notice when your energy changes. It's not just the silence that gets their attention. It's the fact that you're no longer emotionally available to him. You're not waiting, hoping, analyzing his every move. You've reconnected with your life in a way that doesn't include him at the center anymore. Maybe that looks like you picking up that project you abandoned when you were with him. Maybe it's traveling, spending time with people who energize you, getting back into your body through movement or therapy or creativity. Whatever it is, it's yours. And the more you pour into that, the less space he occupies in your mind. Here's the part people rarely talk about. Men don't always come back because you begged or because they missed how you made them feel. They come back when they start to feel your absence in a way they didn't expect, when they realize the door they assumed would always be open is now closed, and when they finally see that you're no longer standing in place, waiting, but moving forward, onward, upward, with or without him. And if he does come back, it won't be because you twisted yourself to fit his vision of love. It'll be because he's now looking at someone who has grown so far beyond the version he left behind. He feels lucky just to be let in again. That's the power of emotional detachment. It forces you to level up for you, not for him, but the result. He notices, he feels it. This isn't about being strategic, it's about being self-anchored. Because once you stop centering someone who stops centering you, you unlock a level of peace that makes you unshakable. You begin to ask better questions, like, is this relationship good for my soul? Or do I actually want him back? Or do I just want the version of him I imagined he could be? Most people don't realize that the desire to win someone back often comes from ego, not love. We want to feel wanted. We want to win. But healing requires the humility to realize that if someone chose to leave, and especially if they chose to move on quickly, that wasn't about your worth. It was about their readiness. And you don't need to make them see the value of what they had. You just need to step into it yourself. Every day you choose not to reach out. Every time you resist the urge to check his page. Every moment you stay rooted in your own healing. Rather than chasing closure, you become more powerful. And whether he ever comes back or not becomes irrelevant. Because you'll look back at this moment, the pain, the silence, the space he left behind, and realize that it was the catalyst, not for getting him back, but for getting you back. And that version of you, she doesn't beg, she doesn't shits. She attracts. Without a word, when a relationship ends and he's already with someone else, the temptation is always the same. Prove to him, to her, and to the world that you're better now. You want to look amazing, show you're thriving, maybe even post just the right picture to make him stop scrolling. You want him to see that losing you was the biggest mistake he ever made. And while that reaction is completely human, it also gives your power away because it keeps your growth tied to his attention. It makes your healing a performance, not for yourself, but for the person who walked away. But real power, real transformation doesn't need an audience. It doesn't need likes, reactions, or a reaction from him. The most powerful glow up is the one that happens in silence. Not because you're hiding it, but because it's no longer about him. It's about you. Quiet evolution is the kind that actually lasts. Because it's not fueled by revenge or ego. It's driven by truth. The truth that you are enough. That your life still matters deeply. And that your story doesn't end just because someone left. When you stop trying to prove something, you actually give yourself space to become something more. You stop wasting energy on trying to control the narrative and you start investing that energy into creating a life that feels good, not just looks good. That means doing the things you said you'd do, picking up the dreams you put down when you made him the center of your world, rebuilding your routine, your confidence, your identity, not with the intention of catching his eye, but with the purpose of rediscovering who you are without him. It's in that quiet commitment to yourself that the real shift happens. Suddenly, you're not acting out of emotional reactivity. You're not playing games. You're just living. Living in a way that aligns with your values. Living in a way that honors your peace. And when you start doing that, the energy you carry changes. People feel it. They may not know what's different, but they'll sense something. And yes, even he will feel it, even if he doesn't say it. Because you're no longer trying to prove your worth. You're embodying it. It's when you're no longer posting for his attention that he starts wondering what's going on in your life. It's when you're no longer available for small talk or emotional check-ins that he starts to question if you've moved on. It's when you stop showing up where he can see you that he realizes how used to your presence he had become. And that absence, that silence, says more than any message ever could. But here's the thing, the goal isn't to trigger him. The goal is to free yourself, to finally stop revolving around someone who isn't in your orbit anymore, because your life is bigger than one love story. And when you fully invest in yourself, not to get him back, but because you finally remember who you are, you become magnetic, not just to him, but to the world, to opportunities, to people who are aligned with your growth, not your past. You begin to show up differently in every area of your life. You make decisions that are rooted in self-respect. You set boundaries, not to push people away, but to protect your peace. You pursue goals that once intimidated you. You reconnect with the parts of you that you abandoned, your creativity, your ambition, your joy. And you realize that your life didn't fall apart when he left. It just gave you the space to build something stronger. It's not about pretending everything's perfect. It's about getting up every day and making choices that support the version of you you're becoming. It's about moving in silence, not because you want to hide, but because you no longer need to announce your every move to feel valuable. You're no longer seeking validation from someone who couldn't see your worth. You're validating yourself quietly, consistently, powerfully, by doing the work. And when you do that work, people feel the difference, not because you told them, but because the way you carry yourself has changed. You're more centered, more grounded, more at peace. And when you walk into a room, your energy speaks before you do. That's the kind of growth no one can fake. That's the kind of transformation that makes people stop and think, wow, I didn't see that coming. That's when he starts to notice. Maybe he sees you out one night, not trying, not posing, just glowing, and it hits him. Maybe he hears about something amazing you're doing, and for the first time he realizes you're no longer stuck in the version of yourself that he knew. Maybe he doesn't say anything right away, but trust me, it lands. And the more you stay silent about your growth, the louder it becomes in his mind. Because silence forces reflection. And in that silence, he starts to wonder what changed, who is she becoming? And more importantly, is there still a place for me in her world? That's the power of quiet evolution. You don't have to say a word. You don't have to prove anything. You just have to keep growing. Keep showing up for yourself. Keep doing the work that builds you, that heals you, that expands your life in every direction. And maybe one day he comes back. Not because you chased, not because you posted the right photo, but because your silence echoed louder than any words ever could. Or maybe he doesn't. But by then you'll be so far into your own life, so full, so whole, that it won't even matter. Because you'll know the truth. You didn't level up for him. You leveled up for you. And no one can take that away. When someone walks away from you, especially when they step right into someone else's arms, your first instinct might be to question your worth. You wonder if you weren't good enough, if you could have done more, if maybe you just weren't what he needed. And in the middle of all that self-doubt, there's a strong pull to remind him of what he lost, to convince him that the connection you shared was irreplaceable. But here's the truth. The cost of losing you is not something he needs you to explain. It's something he needs to feel. And the only way someone truly feels the weight of your absence is when you stop giving them access to your presence. The mistake most people make after a breakup is staying emotionally available. They stay on the hook, always there to respond to a message, pick up a call, offer comfort, or be a safety net if the new relationship doesn't work out. But all that does is teach him that leaving you had no real consequence. That even though he's with someone else, you're still emotionally tethered to him. That no matter what he does, you'll be there, ready, waiting, available. That doesn't make him regret leaving. It makes him feel safe in walking away. The only way he will truly begin to understand the cost of losing you is when he starts to experience life without you. No daily check-ins, no emotional support, no signs that you're still waiting for him to figure it out. He needs to feel the silence. He needs to notice the lack of your warmth, your consistency, your presence. Because when those things go missing, it creates a gap, one that his new situation might not be able to fill. But that won't happen if you're still reaching out, if you're still liking his photos, responding to his stories, or showing up where he might see you. Every time you do that, you relieve the discomfort he should be feeling. And if he never has to sit with that discomfort, he'll never fully appreciate what he had in you, because he never truly lost it. Letting someone feel the cost of losing you doesn't mean acting cold or vindictive. It doesn't mean being cruel or trying to hurt him. It simply means removing the emotional privileges that used to come with being close to you. And not as a punishment, but as a boundary. Because once someone decides they no longer want to be part of your life, they lose access to the parts of you that made that life meaningful. You don't have to scream, "Look what you gave up!" You don't need a dramatic exit or a public declaration of how much better you're doing. All of that is noise, and noise is forgettable. What's unforgettable is your absence, the silence he didn't expect, the peace you built without him, the life that kept moving forward while he assumed you'd stay stuck. Eventually, he starts to realize that the emotional safety you gave him, the way you saw him, the way you showed up, it's not something he can easily find again. And that's when the doubt creeps in, not because you told him to doubt, but because your life has continued to evolve in his absence, and he's now an outsider looking in. This isn't about making him jealous. This is about letting the natural consequences of his decision take hold. Because when someone believes they can have you no matter what, they take you for granted. It's only when that door truly closes that they start to feel the sting of their own choices. And it's in that space, that tension, that clarity starts to rise. He'll compare. That's what people do. He'll look at the person he's with and wonder why it doesn't feel the same. He'll remember how deeply you listened, how you calmed his chaos, how you saw the parts of him he tried to hide. And no matter how perfect things seem on the outside with someone new, he'll know something is missing. That something was you. And by the time he realizes that, it might be too late. And that's okay. Because this isn't about whether he comes back. This is about creating the kind of distance that allows you to return to yourself. The cost of losing you isn't just about what he misses. It's about what you reclaim. Your time, your energy, your attention, all of that gets to return home to you. And when it does, you rise into a version of yourself that no longer begs for validation. You become the kind of person who doesn't chase, because you know your value is never up for negotiation. And if he ever does come back, he won't come back to the same woman he left. He'll come back to someone who has raised her standards, someone who understands her worth in a way she didn't before, someone who may hear his apology, but no longer feels compelled to say yes to it. Because sometimes the greatest revenge is not moving on quickly, not replacing him, not proving a point. The greatest revenge is living so well, so fully, so freely, that he begins to understand he didn't just lose a relationship, he lost a once-in-a-lifetime woman. And that realization, that's what lingers. That's what keeps him awake at night. Not your words, not your sadness, not your efforts to prove anything, but your absence, your growth, your refusal to be available to someone who chose to leave. That's the cost of losing you. And he will feel it, not because you forced him to, but because you finally stopped trying to be felt. There's a version of you that he remembers, the version who answered every call, who forgave easily, who believed his words even when they didn't match his actions, the version who was available at his convenience, who tolerated mixed signals, who accepted less than she deserved because she was in love. That version of you in his mind still exists. And when he thinks of coming back, it's to her. He believes he can slide back into your life, say just enough to stir your feelings and pick up where things left off. What he doesn't expect is that she no longer lives here. And that is exactly where your power is. When someone leaves, and especially when they think they can come back at any time, it's often because they don't believe they'll lose access to you. They assume time will heal your anger, loneliness will soften your boundaries, and that your heart will remain open if they ever decide to return. But what truly shakes someone is not just that you've moved on, it's that they no longer have access to who you used to be. That the version of you who accepted crumbs, who waited, who hoped, is gone. You don't need to tell him that you've changed. You don't need to prove that you've evolved. You just need to become someone who no longer responds to the version of him that broke you. And that's not about pretending. It's about genuinely outgrowing the dynamic that once had a grip on you. You no longer engage with inconsistency. You no longer tolerate emotional immaturity. You no longer lower yourself, to be understood by someone who didn't try to understand you. You're not playing a role, you've grown into someone new. And when he reaches back out, and chances are he eventually will, he'll be looking for familiarity, for the patterns that used to work, for the reactions you always gave. But he won't find them, because your silence is no longer an invitation for him to try harder. Your boundary is no longer a test he thinks he can ignore, and your love is no longer a safety net he believes he can fall back into at will. This doesn't mean you're cold, it doesn't mean you're bitter, it means you've evolved past the level of connection that once held you hostage. And that evolution isn't about revenge, it's about alignment. You've built a new standard for how you allow people to show up in your life, and if he wants access again, it won't be by repeating what he did before. It will be through a completely different level of effort, consistency, and truth. The mistake people often make is believing they have to make a man chase them to prove their worth. But you don't need to be chased, you need to be respected. And real respect isn't born from distance alone, it's born when someone realizes the previous version of you no longer exists. And that, if they want to know you now, they'll have to meet you where you are, not where you used to be. When you stop responding to his old ways, you send a clear message, not with words, but with energy, that the door he once used is now closed, that the access he had is gone, that the version of you who overextended herself no longer picks up the phone. And it's in that realization that he begins to see the cost of his actions. Not just because he misses you, but because he no longer recognizes the woman you've become. And that woman, she's not waiting. She's rising. You become unreachable, not because you're hiding, but because you've elevated. Your standards, your peace, your time, they've all become sacred. And anyone who wants to be in your life now doesn't just need to want you, they need to be ready for you. The healed you, the grown you, the woman who stops confusing effort with self-sacrifice. The woman who's done explaining why she needs consistency, honesty, depth. He'll try to test the waters, maybe a casual message, maybe a memory dropped into conversation. He might ask how you're doing, comment on something he saw you post, or find a way to insert himself back into your world, but the version of you who used to melt at that attention, she's no longer home. She's not angry. She's not playing hard to get. She's just evolved. And he'll feel it. He'll feel it in your tone, in your timing, in your disinterest in revisiting the past. Not because you don't care, but because caring no longer means abandoning yourself to love someone else. Caring doesn't mean you tolerate the same behavior that once hurt you. And if he truly wants another chance, he'll have to show up as someone new too, because the old you no longer entertains the old him. That's the beauty of growth. It doesn't scream, it doesn't chase, it simply transforms. And transformation has a way of leaving people speechless, especially the ones who thought they had time, especially the ones who thought your love would always be there, waiting. You're not punishing him by being unreachable. You're honoring yourself by not allowing the past to repeat. You're protecting the version of you who fought so hard to become whole again. And anyone who wants to be part of your future needs to speak to her, needs to earn her trusts, her time, her space. And if he can't, if he still comes with the same inconsistency, the same ego, the same inability to meet you where you are, then you'll know His place was always in your past, and your healing made sure he stayed there. Because you didn't just move on, you became someone he can no longer reach unless he rises too.